We have explored the familiar, we have explored the unpopular, and the unknown. When it comes to RE4, there's just so much strange things that myself, and in this case the viewers, seem to dig up and create some of the most puzzling mysteries and unusual ambiguities to date. As niche as they may appear at first glance, there has to be a reason for these things to exist outside of developer intuition or mere coincidence. I believe that the following mystery has as much, if not more depth than the most notorious mysteries that have ever been covered on YouTube. For this mystery, we find ourselves back at our beloved cabin, the location of the infamous anonymous letter and where my perpetual content box originated. After waking up after a 6-hour sleep, he was definitely dreaming about the dog, by the way. We start to notice a change in our environment, and not a natural one either. As diminished and scary the sudden transposition into a rainstorm is, we bring our focus to the lights, as all of the previously extinguished bonfires and torches are now lit. And in the words of Lewis himself,
"Okay, I have only one very important question. You got a smoke?"
Got gum.
Because this is about as far down the rabbit hole as we can possibly be at this point, I'll probably only stick to character lore videos after this. There is obviously nothing in regards to prior interest or discussion when it comes to the torches. Nevertheless, I've come up with a few plausible theories for this mystery as always, and I'll leave my hypothesis for the end. As for the criteria, a suspect would have had to light all of the torches in the entire village within a 6-hour period. They would have had to travel to locations such as this bonfire, which aren't easily accessible by a normal person. And the most interesting of all, they had to light the torches literally meters away from Leon's unconscious body, yet decided to leave him alone for whatever reason. Aside from locations such as the village square that marks the predominant housing of these torches, some locations where you'd never see a ganado had these things. So with all of this considered, let's get to theory number 1. It's the theory that you'd scream in your head when even remotely implying a subject such as this. The villagers are the obvious answer. They're a very coordinated people, they work in groups, they're strategic, they're quite comfortable with using fire on a daily basis. Although I disagree with their involvement for the following points, they're still very capable of performing a laborious task such as this. As obsolete as it may be, at least the torches that have little to no importance, like this bonfire in the middle of the lake, or certain torches here and there, it could have all been done under request of Sadler or Chief Mendez. And I don't question the validity of this at all. In fact, I can say with confidence that most of the torches discovered outside of the lake were probably lit by villagers. The only time we ever see villagers at the lake is this optional cutscene at the top of the cliff, where we see them dispose of the second police officer, a character of whom I often speculate to have survived the first bridge ambush before making his way downstream and taking refuge in this cabin before Leon got here. I ultimately believe that he was alive just minutes before Leon made his way to the lake, and if we were to assume this to be true, it's very important for later. Outside of this interaction, which is easily missable, you'll never see a ganado at the lake. It's the afternoon, there's nobody here, and the only enemies here at night are the dogs. Already it sounds a little dangerous for a ganado to wander the lakeside at night just to light a meaningless torch. Secondly, if a large group of ganados were here between this 6-hour period, why didn't Del Lago's death raise any suspicion? Why didn't any of them stick around whatsoever? This cabin is one of the nicer houses we can find in the game, yet no one felt the need to take shelter during the rainstorm. I have to reiterate the criteria for the sake of this argument. A ganado had to light a torch located directly next to Leon in this instance. It makes absolutely no sense how they couldn't find us. And just to shut down this theory entirely, he left the door open for goodness sake. Even if the wind just so happened to close the door afterwards, it was still unlocked. This would have aroused a lot of suspicion, making Leon an easy target for a close by Ganado, even a blind one, let alone a group of them walking around with all of the illumination in the world. So apparently they were able to find the police officer easily, who was probably hiding in the cabin tactically. I mean, he was smart enough to close the door at least. Yet they couldn't find Leon, who was face down on the floor right after killing Delago with the door wide open. And they were right next to him lighting the bonfires and torches. There's absolutely no way. After the disposal of the police officer, no Ganado stepped foot near the lake. The closest enemies at this point were our first encounter with the Las Plagas mutation and the pack of wolves. No one was here during these 6 hours though. Also, under the call of Sadler, the villagers all drop their weapons and equipment. The only way I see them going out of their way to light some of these were if they were forced to. Walking at the speed of an Ashley caught in a bear trap whilst barehanded just isn't going to get the job done. Resident Evil 4 is no stranger to the supernatural, a dog that can warp from different dimensions, a merchant that cannot be killed no matter how hard you try. This was never a series as grounded in reality as some may think. Even the discontinued Hookman version, often named version 3.5, was a paranormal game, so we can never discredit the possible influence that that version took on board with the eventual release of RE4. I propose a theory that the dog had something to do with the torches. You knew it was coming at some point. So, in my dog video, I landed on the conclusion that he was Leon's guardian angel, presented to him for mental prosperity after the death of the police officers so early on in his mission, to be saved by Leon and to act as his guiding light when needed, literally. It's no coincidence that the castle and the island are already well-lit areas, so there wasn't any need for the dog to stick around and use his magic. It's also strange that the dog appears for the last time during the El Gigante fight, the same chapter that we wake up from the lake of course. In the remake, flashes of lightning appear, and in both games we aren't just dealing with a normal rainstorm. Lightning is present from the moment we wake up. Lightning is considered a representation of divine intervention or punishment, and there was no better place for this to occur than when helping Leon defeat El Gigante. The sudden illumination created by lightning could also be symbolism for the torches and bonfires, and the light that comes with them. Lightning is also the main cause of natural fire, so it makes a lot of sense. For the case of some of these bonfires at the lake specifically, those that are incredibly difficult to reach, I tend to lean more towards theories such as this one, or maybe this next one is more convincing. For a more pragmatic suggestion, these could all be the result of some sort of mechanism or system, gas pipes underneath the pillars perhaps. Well, for most of them this isn't a far-fetched conclusion at all. It would instantly clarify, in a more logical way, how the more difficult or secluded of these were lit in such a short amount of time. It would explain why we don't see any Ganados at the lake, since it's all done automatically. There's a lot of fuel throughout the village. The barrels have been dumped on public footpaths. These single-handedly save Leon's life at certain moments.
Hasta luego.
I don't know where it all comes from, but they have the means to set up some sort of auto-torch appliance. But due to the overwhelmingly negligent and primitive conditions here, they didn't have the technology to create something like this, or even make much use of all of this petrol. They've seemed to abandon these barrels by the look of it. There's only 2 vehicles that we come across until we find the castle, where there's even less. If any trades took place, it would have been between the islanders and the villagers. But even then, why do they need all of this fuel anyway? With that being said, these are still gas fires, Class C fires. These types of fires cannot be extinguished by water, they require dry powder instead. This is how they can be set up during a storm and still be fine, but this wasn't due to a mechanism I believe. There's also some torches that aren't connected to poles. These isolated vessels on doors, for example, can't be linked to a pipe. So even if some torches were automatically lit, someone had to still manually light those on the doors and the bonfires at the lake. The merchant is once again the suspect that most fits the conditions set at the beginning. Similar to the anonymous letter mystery, he is the closest ally to Leon at this point in the game. I'm still adamant that he wrote Leon the letter. After seeing the door wide open and Leon unconscious on the floor, he used these 6 hours to write Leon this letter before teleporting to the harder to reach locations in order to make things easier for him, conclusively leading us to the waterfall where the insignia was being held. We also have to examine the merchant's shop before and after the Delago fight. It was caged off before, a decision that even the developers didn't need to make, as the trigger starts in the middle of the lake. We couldn't access this area even if we wanted to. After we cut ourselves free and make our way to the cabin, we wake up to find these bars removed. The signature blue torches glamorously pulling us towards his shop as always. Are we to assume that the merchant only lit his blue torches and removed these bars before making his way back inside? Possibly, but there's no other boat around for the merchant to use. But someone had to close this door. I don't think the wind is a substantial enough theory when all of these details clearly demonstrate another party's involvement. Someone wrote him the letter and shut the door on the way out to avoid suspicion. Because the merchant is right next door, essentially knowing Leon's location, there is no other explanation needed. The merchant is the torch master. He can swiftly turn on his blue torches at a second's notice. The only character that we know for a fact has teleportation abilities as per his dominant species Las Plagas. So my final conclusion is a simple one. The Ganados lit the torches at the village, but these ones at the lake, the merchant lit these. It's the only way to explain how Leon wasn't apprehended during these 6 hours. So that's another theory checked off the ever-growing list of obscurity. I don't remember who suggested this one, but I believe it was one of the oldest comments on the channel. Once again, thank you for watching all the way to the end. This mystery was extremely fun to write, and I'll look forward to hearing more suggestions from you in the future and your opinion on this one.